Well, good afternoon, and we are here today to interview our Myers lecturer for 2018, Earl Smith III. And,
Thank you.
So welcome to Columbus.
My mother thanks you for getting that in.
That's right, no problem, happy to do it. And we're just delighted to have you here, and as one of our lecturers, this is our 10th lecture in the series, and so we're excited to hear what you have to say tonight, and just thrilled to have you here in Columbus. So
Well, thank you. I know it's a distinct honor to be here. I looked at the group of former awardees, and I am very, very proud to be among that group, and surprised in many respects.
And we're delighted that you maintain the standards. Sometimes folks think, oh, I don't meet that standard, and it's like, no.
No, wait till the talk. Don't say anything. Wait till the talk.
So it may be premature to make
Yes,
a
that's
judgment
right.
just yet. Okay, well, we'll wait, and then we'll decide, so that's fine. So just as we were kind of going through and preparing for the interview today, here are some of the things that I noticed. Graduated from the University of Houston with 3 degrees.
Mhm.
They seem to like you so much you've stayed for an entire career, so never got out of the...
Well, actually, I had 4 degrees there
Did you? Okay.
from U of H. I never left. It was the only school that offered me a job.
Oh, okay.
And I was smart enough to take it.
Okay, well, there you go. You've been real involved with the National Eye Institute, National Institutes of Health and Study sections, and various councils and panels. Been dean at the University of Houston since 2003, except for a 2-year stint when you served as the university's chief health officer. Yeah.
Mhm.
You've authored almost 200 refereed publications, kind of a big deal there. 35 years of research funding from NEI, both domestic and international lecturing. That's exciting. Journal referee for more than a dozen journals. Your research focus for the last 3 decades, as I see it, has really been on visual function, whether understanding the antisymmetropic stimuli, amblyopia causes, and more recently trying to slow myopia progression or even emmetropization. How's that?
Yeah, that's good enough.
Pretty good. Obviously, a career like that comes along with some recognitions, which we're excited for you. Educator of the Year and Optometrist of the Year from the Texas Optometric Association. The Fry Award, the Prentice Medal, and the Clay Award from the American Academy of Optometry. The Korb Award and the Legends Award from the American Optometric Association. Been inducted into the National Optometry Hall of Fame. You're an Arvo Fellow, Distinguished Scholar of the National Academies of Practice, and elected as one of Optometric Management's 50 most influential optometrists.
There you go.
Sounds pretty impressive. So, but the reality is we want to know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
And kind of what makes you tick. And so to that end, we'll ask some questions and see what you have to say about
All right.
those. And,
Sounds great.
We'll see what happens. So why did you choose optometry? I mean, what drew you to this profession, and why such a commitment to research, not traditional practice?
And I didn't get into optometry the traditional way, and this is the honest truth. I think it's an interesting story. My sister's 3 years older than I am, and she's the smart one in the family. And she was going to University of Houston. At the time, she was getting a teaching degree, and she was at U of H, and I was still in Dallas in high school. And she was dating an optometry student, and she told me that, you really ought to look into this. And I was a math major. I was planning on being an engineer. And I thought, well, what the heck? And I took a trip down to Houston and had a tour of the school. And I really enjoyed it. And I liked the camaraderie there. I liked the pride that people felt there. And I think what really put me over the top is I had a microbiology course the next semester. And that's when the magic of biology sort of showed up. And I applied. I was just in my first year of college when I applied. And I applied knowing, well, I'm not going to get in this year, but I'll get in next year. And it just so happened, as my father and my mother and I were at dinner, we're sitting at dinner, and we got a phone call. It was a Friday evening. It was about 5, 6 o'clock. And all I heard was my mother said, well, he'll be there. And somebody had dropped out or didn't, who had accepted an invitation to go to U of H, and they didn't show or weren't going to show, and they had a position, and they took me. And so the next week, I packed up all my worldly possessions in a 1967 Austin Healey Sprite, which is about as big as this table, and drove to Houston. And the only thing I had was a phone number and address of someone to find when I got down there. The moment I walked in the door, they gave me an adult beverage, which I greatly appreciated. And he also found me a roommate and a place to live, and that I think was just a great example of the family atmosphere around optometry, how they take care of each other. But I got into optometry school really through the back door. But it's one of those things. It was a great marriage, and it had everything in it I liked. It had the mathematics, but it had the biology, and it was unfortunately when I was in optometry school, it wasn't as an exciting time for optometry as it is now. We were very limited in what we can do, and so what I'm rolling towards is how I got into graduate school. And when I graduated, I was very young because I essentially skipped a bunch of time coming in. And I wasn't really ready to go out and get a real job, although I actually had a practice in Dallas I was sort of thinking about. But our college started a graduate program about a year before I graduated, and that was started to look real good. And I decided, well, I'm going to give that a shot. And that turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. There are two or three that were really, really good. But that was an absolutely fantastic decision for me because it gave me a career and a passion that I really hadn't had before. And I was fortunate to work with some really, really good people. And I was at a place when a program is just starting. There's something special about developing programs and growing programs, and I was part of that. And so it was a very special time. And I had some really good faculty, so it turned out to be a great thing. And it turned out that when my dissertation advisor left, I got his job. So that's how I got to U of H and how I continue to be at U of H.
Gotcha. If it hadn't been for optometry, do you think you would have gone the engineering route, or where would you have been?
I'm not sure. That biology course, that micro course I took was pretty inspiring, but I'm not sure, but I certainly was I was going the math major route, and I was happy about that. And I was interested in engineering, and I'm not sure where I would have gone at, to be honest. But I was very fortunate that my sister made a recommendation. She didn't date this guy very long, but it worked out for the best for me.
Right, that's good. What motivates you?
Well, there's two levels. I can deal with that at two levels. One, as an administrator, you're motivated by making your institution better, and that's something I enjoy. It's something I have a passion about, and it's something that can motivate you in a substantial way. You don't want to let the institution down, and your profession. It's all the same. But I'm also motivated as a scientist, and I am stepping down as dean as soon as they find a new replacement, and I'm going back to faculty to finish up the research that I've been doing, and I'm very excited about that. I'm still excited by discovery. I'm still fascinated by the results that we get. You make a bet, and you think it's going to turn out one way, and it turns out to be something quite different, and that opens up the door for a lot of other questions. And I still get excited by that.
And that's cool because I think some of our best researchers in the profession still get excited about doing research even later in career.
Well, if
you're
not excited about it, you're not going to be doing it.
Right,
And it to the folks that aren't involved, it is truly hard work. It's something that you live and breathe, and you don't leave it in the lab when you go home. And that's true of anybody that's working hard. I think in any kind of position. You don't leave it. I get up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about stuff, and I'm thinking about why didn't this fit? Why doesn't this fit together? How can I explain this? And it does, instead of bothering me, I actually sort of relish that.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting job, and it's being in academics is I don't think there's a better career in life. And as I've told many people time and time again, being dean is it's the best job I've ever had.
So you don't miss traditional practice?
I've never been in traditional practice. I had planned on it. I had fully planned on coming back to Dallas and going into practice. It just, at the time, I needed to mature a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So you grew up in Dallas then, I guess?
Well, my father was in the service. I was born in Virginia. I lived a lot of different places. But I went to junior high and high school in Dallas, and that pretty much makes you a Texan.
So they count that.
Yeah.
That's good. who are the early influencers when you were growing up? And then who have been mentors for you as you've gone through your career?
Well, my sister was certainly a primary motivator and mentor when I was younger, and she, without her help, I probably wouldn't have got through high school, because she was a smart one of the family, and she also earned 2 doctorate degrees after she earned her teaching degree. But she was the one that breathed some life into some things for me where I wasn't seeing the excitement, and that helped a lot. In terms of professional career, I mean, that's easy. I've worked with 3 people in a very significant way. I worked with Ron Harworth my entire career. And in fact, when I joined the faculty at U of H, actually he worked on my dissertation with me before I joined the faculty, but once I joined the faculty, I asked him, can I work in your lab? And that was the smartest move I ever made in my life. And I walked into a very productive laboratory, to a very mature scientist, a meticulous scientist, and someone who lived and breathed it. And so I learned how to run a lab, I learned how to be a scientist, and I learned the responsibilities that went with that from him. I could sort of say the same thing about Yuzo Chino. He and I have collaborated also in a slightly different area, but almost for the same amount of time. And it's a little bit different. He and I were sort of equals coming together, where Ron was clearly my mentor, and I was following him. Still am, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Well, I should mention one other person who is my partner in a sense, Li Fong Hung. He runs my laboratory. He and I have worked together now for 25, 26 years. And I couldn't have run the lab as dean without him. And he's the one that turns the crank every day. He's the one that makes sure everything is right. It's a great partnership. We each have skills in different areas. We complement each other really well. And we'll probably walk out the door together because we're both the same age, and we'll probably hang it up at the same time when it's right.
Well, it's given you a real benefit to continue to pursue your research.
Yeah,
your academic responsibilities.
I could not have done that as dean without Li Fong in the lab. I mean, prior to becoming dean, I would spend, I'd say 6 hours a day in the lab. And you can't do that when you move down the hall. And I was fortunate enough that we talked through this and we figured out a way to make it work, and it's still working. That's the good news.
That's good. So how close are we to having a commercial product or a process for true myopia control or true ametropiazation?
Well, I already think you have products out there that work. I mean, Cooper Vision has a lens. I have no relationship to Cooper Vision, so I can say that. They have a lens that produces a clinically meaningful reduction in progression rate. And there's a variety of lenses that are commercially available today. They're not FDA approved for myopia control, but the studies are out there they convince me that they produce a clinically meaningful reduction in progression. So I think there are a variety of ways. I think pharmaceutically atropine works. I think we can get a lot better, and I think you're going to see things improve substantially. And as the clinical research matures and we start learning the things that lead to a lot of the variation in clinical trials, like compliance and how to select the right subjects and how to optimize lens designs on an individual basis, I think we'll get a lot better than where we are right now. Right now, we're sort of at that 40 to 50% reduction in progression. I think we can do better than that. It's up to the clinical scientists to sort of, I think, move us a lot faster, a lot farther now. I think the basic research, at least in terms of the role of defocus, that sort of has gotten to where it needs to be, at least in terms of translating that. The pharmaceutical stuff, there's a lot of room to improve there. I think there's a lot of doors they'll open in that particular area. But I have no doubt in my mind that I don't know how soon it'll be legal or not legal. I don't know how soon it'll be FDA approved in this country, but it'll certainly be approved in other countries, and it already is in some. But it'll certainly be in widespread use in the near future. And in the near future, I would say easily 5-10 years at the most.
And that's neat.
I think it's Well, I think it's a huge responsibility. I mean, if you look around the world, there's no doubt we're in the middle of an epidemic of myopia. It's essentially run its course in Asia. We're sort of behind the curve here, but it's we're catching up, and the consequences of being nearsighted are just really being recognized by important people. And so I think as time goes by and people recognize what a public health concern it really is, people start dealing with it. But I think we as optometrists need to lead the way.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been ignored, because
Yeah.
it doesn't look like somebody's hurting or injured or anything like that, and so people don't know how poorly somebody sees, and what a life-changing thing it can be to make them, give them a situation where they can see.
And it is it's an interesting concept to communicate to patients right now, because right now we don't cure the disease, we don't reverse it, we only slow it down. And showing evidence of slowing down is difficult on a one individual, one-on-one basis. And so that's, I think, the primary reason it's been slow to be widely accepted. But it will as people become more knowledgeable about what is available, and as people become more knowledgeable about the consequences that their patients are going to experience if they don't do something.
What would you point to as your most lasting contribution or significant accomplishment for the profession so far?
Yeah, well, I think we started our work in earnest on the effects, the role of visual experience on eye growth at a time when there was a lot of questions about how the animal literature extrapolated to the human condition. And I think demonstrating that many of the fundamental observations that had been seen in chickens and other animals also occurred in non-human primates is something that I think had a big impact as a body of work. And so I think the body of work that shows that something as simple as a spectacle lens, by changing the effective focus of the eye, can particularly change the way the eye grows, and that you can control the way the eye grows with a spectacle lens is part of that body of work. And I think that's what our lab will be probably most known for, is showing that this is occurring in non-human primates, and it's very obviously occurring in humans as well.
You seem to have a very curious mind, and so is there a research question that has yet to be answered for you that you'd like to get answered before you finish up?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. The one that is certainly interesting me a lot right now is how the eye encodes or decodes sign of defocus. We know that there are mechanisms inside the retina itself that actually can tell if the eye is farsighted or nearsighted. And we have some ideas, and there's some really good work coming out of a couple labs showing that chromatic aberration probably plays a role. But there are so many issues that conflict with that, or don't quite fit with that. And there's certainly suggestions that there's more than one way that the eye can do it. But that is a fundamental question, because if you can understand how the eye encodes sign of defocus, it certainly should, I would think, lead to ways to very effectively manipulate a person's vision, an eye's vision, to control the way the eye grows. So that's a question that I'm very keen about right now.
You think you're going to get the answer?
I don't think so, because I'm not looking specifically at that.
Oh, okay.
and that's in part. We're nibbling around the corners of it. I don't mean to. It's the kind of question that will be very difficult to deal with the tools that I have in my lab. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure how I could design an experiment to dissect some of the things that I think I need to dissect right now. So I'm going to be playing around the edges of that, and we're certainly making bets about what certain kinds of visual environments should do based on what we understand, and that's where some of the puzzling questions have come up. But I'm going to certainly follow the literature, because it's an exciting one right now.
Well, and even if it's not something you get solved, you're laying the groundwork for others.
Well, I'm certainly I'm here at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your family. Tell us a little bit about them.
Well, my family's a small one. There's on my side of the family, my sister is the only person that my direct family is still alive. She's in North Carolina. She retired as chair of the education department at Western Carolina University, and she lives in the hills of Western Carolina. And as I said, she was an inspiration to me growing up. My wife, Janice, and I, we have a great marriage, a great time. Her family, she's from Canada. Her family is still in Canada. And so we live by our lonesome down in Houston, but we have a really good time. We have a great opportunities to get out of the Houston heat and visit her family up in Lethbridge in Canada, her brother in Edmonton. And when we're not going north, we go south, we go to Cozumel. My wife and I are both avid scuba divers, and so we take every opportunity we can to do that. So it's a small family.
Well, tell us a little bit about the scuba diving. I was going to ask you about hobbies anyway, and I knew about that, but tell us about that.
We've been, Janice and I have been diving together since we first met, actually. And in fact, Janice just had her 500th dive over the 4th of July holiday.
Wow.
But that's something that for us is it's a very zen kind of feeling. It's very relaxing. It's like a great walk in the park with your best friend. It's always in some place that has good weather and it has drinks with umbrellas in them and things like that. So it's there's nothing not to like about diving. It's always in a good place. It's an exotic place. There's good water. There's good food. Good people. And we always try someplace new every year. But we fell in love with Cozumel a long time ago, Cozumel, Mexico. And so we own a condominium down there, and we try to get down there as frequently as we possibly can.
What other places have you gone?
Well, there's not too many places in the Caribbean we haven't been. And there's always, I haven't been to Roatan. We might try to get there in February. I know the diving's good there. There's not a bad place, I'll be honest. We've gone to all the popular places like the Caymans and Bermuda and Bahamas and most of the Antilles, but every place is special. Every place is has something that's fun to see. Cozumel day in day out has the best visibility, I think. And a good day in Cozumel, you get 300 feet of visibility in the water, which is pretty spectacular. On a bad day, it's about 60 feet, which is about as good as you get in most other places. It's all drift diving, so you don't even have to swim. You just get down where you want to be, and the current takes you, and you just go by beautiful coral and fish. And
what turns you on once you get down there? What do you love to see and go, man, this was worth doing?
Well, it's the fish and the coral and the beauty and the thing that's exciting is the Caribbean corals are still very healthy. I mean, they're warm weather corals, so they might survive some of this warming better than others. But it's the fish and the interesting thing that the fish are doing, and the weightlessness, the fact that there are certain places in Cozumel where you sort of fly over valleys that are maybe 1,000 feet deep, and you're sort of in that mid-level, and you just sort of skim across them, and it's just a spectacular feeling of freedom.
Sounds like we should all go scuba diving.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it.
Is everybody available this weekend? I should ask, did your sister weather the hurricane okay?
Yeah, she's 2/3 of the way up a mountain. And it turns out she's in a relatively unique place where every place around her gets rain, but they don't get that much. So she came out fine.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it. Any life lessons you could share with us that might be shared with students who might review this later, or people who are on faculty or teaching, or just life lessons you would say, if I could tell you this would be a helpful thing for you as you go through your career?
Well, I think the key thing is to find something that you're passionate about, something where you enjoy going to work, where you enjoy what you're doing, and if you're not doing that, you've made a wrong decision somewhere. And I think you can't put enough of yourself into a job if you're not excited about it, if you're not happy being there, if it's not something you want to do. So I think the most critical thing is finding that niche that fits your lifestyle, fits your vision of what a good life is. And for me, I've been very fortunate. I think academic life is there's just not a better way to live your life. I deal with smart people, smart kids all day long, smart colleagues all day long. It's inspiring. So now that doesn't mean I don't go home and first thing I do is get a martini some days, but day in day out, it's absolutely fantastic life.
Mm-hmm. So passion, anything else that you would suggest as a life lesson?
Stay close to your family. That's we have a small family, but we communicate a lot. We do a lot together. We always get together at Christmas time. We always get together in May after graduation. In fact, we bring the family down to Cozumel in May, and sometimes in December as well. So even though we're a long way away from family, it's important to get together and be close.
Are you looking to adopt more family? Because there's people that are thinking Cozumel after graduation might be a great opportunity.
Well, we're scheduled. We're already scheduled. You're welcome to come down and visit.
It's on tape, so we got it. All right. Any other life lessons?
Well, other than find out what you like to do and do it, I don't. I'm not sure I have better advice than that.
That's good. That's good. Looking over the course of your life, you've shared some things that you would say, aha, that was a great decision in retrospect. If there was something in your life that you could redo, what would it be?
I think there's a lot of those.
Well, you don't have to share them all or embarrass yourself.
In research, you make a lot of bets, and a lot of those sometimes aren't right. Although I don't see that actually that's not a failure. You learn from those.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things I'd have to embarrass myself to tell you about, and I don't want to do that.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. All right.
Let's just say I've been lucky.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. What do you wish you had done less of in your life?
That's a tough one. I have to admit I'm a workaholic, and I drag my wife into a lot of that because if I'm in town, I go to school on weekends, and it's just because that's sort of my hobby. And it's taken me a while to learn to sort of pull back from that, and that's one of the things I actually respect from sort of the younger kids coming to school now. They have a pretty good work-life balance, and I think I have a tendency to put work ahead of things, and I've got to the stage in my life where I recognize it's much more valuable to be more well-rounded now,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably should have learned that at an earlier age.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you wish you had done more of?
Well, I'd love to have done more scuba diving. That's something I have a fondness for that. I think I've done a lot of great things. I've enjoyed it. We do a lot of traveling. We do a lot of things that we have hobbies like eating. We like to eat well. So we fine dining is something Janice and I really enjoy. We enjoy good wines, and we take advantage of what Houston and other places have to offer. I think we live in a good life. So I don't have any regrets really.
That's good. That's good. Well, that completes my questions. Now, the group that's here may have some additional questions, and so we'll kind of open it up for them and see if they can stump you on anything. So, anyone? Bob Newcomb's usually pretty good for something.
Well, I just want to congratulate Earl and thank him for coming to Ohio State. You honor us by being here, Earl. And since your whole career has been in optometric education, what are the one or two big challenges for the profession, specifically in optometric education, that you see over the next 5 years?
Yeah, no, I think we face some significant challenges. The one that worries me the most is how optometry fits into the evolving healthcare scene. I don't think we have done as good a job as we should in getting involved in healthcare teams and delivery of healthcare in a team manner. All the schools have certainly gotten much more involved in their professional education. I think we've been slow there, and I think our biggest challenge is really making sure other people know that what we can do. And I think that's still something that, you know, we still haven't done a good job of getting to GPs and folks like that and letting them know what, you know, how important we are to the health of the population. And as healthcare evolves because of all the cost issues, it's going to become more important for us to get inside the tent. And we have been outside the tent a little bit too much, and it's primarily because we're a legislative profession. And so it's been interesting the way we've interacted with some of our healthcare professionals, but I think that's something we have to do a better job of. And I struggle with that. I struggle with trying to, I'll be honest, I don't think I have the skill set to sort of make some of that happen. But I know some people that do. You know, another thing that everybody and this is related, a related issue, is we haven't done a good job explaining to the public how important we are. And I tell people in Texas, you know, 2/3 of the optometrists in Texas are U of H grads, and what that means is that about half the eye care in Texas is provided by U of H grads. So if you went and had your eyes examined, chances are, you know, we did that. And the general population doesn't know that. They don't know how important we are and how much of a contribution we make. And that's why I think our applicant pool suffers a bit. Applicant pool for optometry schools suffers a bit. I don't think we've done a good job of making sure people know what we do and how critical it is to the world. But it's something that we've got to get better at in a hurry.
Are there opportunities on the U of H campus for interdisciplinary practice or research? Or
yeah, more now than ever before. Where the optometry building is, the Armistead building, we were by ourselves. We were on the corner of campus across the street, and in a way, I like that. That was great because they stayed on their side, we stayed on our side. But we built what's now the Health One building, and clinical psychology moved in, and we built a lot of research facilities that attracted some folks from across campus, expanded our clinical facilities there. We just finished a second, when I say we, the university, finished a second health building behind us. That holds College of Pharmacy. It has a big nursing component, a big physical therapy component, a clinical psych component, a big social work component. We have a primary care ambulatory clinical service going into the first floor of that building, which will be run like an FQHC. The university is starting a new medical school that is dedicated to community-based health, public health, and at least the philosophy of that medical school and the philosophy of interprofessional education is being promoted in a very strong way at the university right now. And in fact, the layout of that clinical facility on the first floor of the building behind us, all the exam rooms are huge because the expectation is we will have one representative from each, we'll have an optometrist there, we'll have a pharmacy student, we'll have a social work student, we'll have a clinical psychologist, following whoever's patient that happens to be that day. The medical school, we're not sure what location that will be. We think it's going to be a third building behind ours. So it turns out our corner of campus is going to be the health center of campus.
Nice.
And that's going to be a real good deal for us, I think. We just started a new nursing program a couple years ago, and that's going to be a good deal for us as well. So we're already starting to share teaching facilities and things like that. There's still a lot of the bumps in the road that go with that, but we have some really good opportunities, so I'm excited about that.
Sounds wonderful.
Other questions?
Sure. So, Earl, I have a particular bias that institutions like yours and ours are vital to this profession, that you can't call yourself a profession without an underpinning of your own research. If you don't have that, you're a trade. And I think I'm confident in saying that you are highly respected as a leader of one of those important institutions, and you've done it for an almost 15 years plus or
A while.
minus a little bit. Yeah, been a long time. Been a long time as a dean. So if somebody listening or watching this video a few years from now were aspiring to be the same caliber of leader as you, what are the skills? What are the attributes? What should somebody hone or refine as they think about perhaps that aspiration?
Well, it's one of these things. I think he can be a successful dean lots of different ways, and the reason I say that, there's so many good examples at every institution of deans that have been successful, and they rarely do things the same way. I mean, I'm very different from Jerry Strickland, who was the dean before I was, but he was wildly successful in many different ways where I couldn't be. But I agree with you. I think one of the important things that our institution, and the same thing here at Ohio State, is research is the cornerstone of our college. It's how we contribute to the profession in addition to educating students. It's our job in a sense. Education and research are side by side, and for me that. I could lead by example in that realm, and that I think is partly why I've been successful as dean, is that I was able to maintain an active research program and I could relate to everybody in the house. I think in terms of being a successful leader, being willing to lead in different ways, or to try to lead in different ways. I mean, being a role model doesn't work for example, for at least me, being a role model doesn't work for a clinical faculty person. I have to work with them and promote their interests in different ways. But I have to be able to. Any successful dean has to be able to, I think, operate in a variety of different ways, depending on the person and the situation. But I think invariably you have to keep the big picture in mind. And the big picture for us is educating students and doing scholarship, and maintaining that, always moving forward. Not because if you're standing still, you're falling behind. You got to keep moving forward. So keep the big picture in mind and try to stay out of the weeds. And part of that is, and this was, I have to admit, this was a bit of a challenge for me, is delegating. When you're a PI and you run your own lab and your lab is your life, you want to make sure you know everything that's going on in that lab, and you know where everything is and exactly how everything works. And when you start getting up into administration, I don't think it's possible to do that. And you have to have people that you can trust, or you have to trust people, and you have to get the right people in the right place, and you've got to give them their lead so that they have authority as well as responsibility. And so we have a very flat administrative structure in Houston. People know, faculty know, they can go to any of the chairs or associate deans. They don't have to come to me for things, and they can make the same kinds of decisions that I can make.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're different, but it usually works out.
Right.
Can I follow on to that?
Sure.
I was interested in the dean side of your career as well. I mean, I completely get the passion towards research and the thrill of trying to answer a question. But as Carla said, you're on the list of really great deans at a first-rate institution. Where would you describe what is the satisfaction in that leadership role? I mean, it's not just a highly developed sense of responsibility on your part. I mean, there's got to be some fun there.
Well, there is a lot of fun. But there's a couple things. In research, you get excited by discovery. In administration, you get excited by success. And moving the college forward is a huge deal. Seeing success of individual faculty, providing, that's one of the things that was actually easy for me to do, was to work with people that were very different from me in the sense of what their interests were, but help them achieve what they wanted to achieve, because I thought that was important for the college. And seeing people move up through the ranks and seeing them be successful, that you can take that to the bank. And that's as exciting as doing research. I mean, and also optometry as a profession has been very, very good to me. I walked into a family situation, and they've taken care of me my entire career. And so I feel, a debt of honor to the profession, and I feel like, being at a school, I'm helping to move the profession forward, and we're very close to the TOA, just like you guys are here, with the was it OA? What are you guys? OA here. But whatever it is, you got to be close to the profession, and that's. I enjoy that, and that's something that I probably didn't think I would at first. But one of the things that I did first couple of years as dean is I went to see all the local societies in Texas, and we have one for every senatorial district in the state senatorial district. Although in Texas we might have more than 2 U.S. senators. I'll give you one. I better stop there. But anyway, I went to all the local societies because they knew me as a scientist. They didn't know me as an optometrist, and I think that worried a lot of people. But it gave me a chance to understand how they perceived the school, to understand what their needs were, to understand in a better way where the profession was at in the real world. And to reintroduce myself to a lot of old friends. There's not an optometrist that's gone through U of H since 1968 that I didn't know.
Wow.
So there's not too many people in Texas that I haven't had direct contact with at some point in my life. So that was a really good thing for me as well. And I got a lot of just feel goods from doing those local society meetings. I go out and eat rubber chicken, have a couple beers, and give a talk and talk about school and where we're going. They really enjoy seeing it, and I enjoy meeting them again. But as I said earlier, being dean's a great job. It's the best job I've ever had, and it's not something I started out to do. As a scientist early in the career, I'd look down at administrators. I thought, well, that's a waste of time. What are you doing? Sitting down in the hall in that office, you're not doing anything. And as I got older and had a better perspective on things, I also got a little arrogant, because I thought, I think I know where we ought to go. And so you start getting to the point where thinking, I think I can make decisions that will move us in the right direction. And that's when I decided that I'm going to try this department chair business and see how that goes. And that was enough to convince me that I'm going to try to ride this administration out a little bit. And I had good mentors. Jerry Strickland. I should have mentioned that earlier. Jerry Strickland was certainly a very valuable mentor to me as an administrator. In fact, the only mentor I've had is I've worked with all the deans that we had at U of H, have had at U of H. And so, he was, he taught me a lot and gave me a lot of opportunities. And so, it's administration is a pretty good deal. Now, you can have a good time there. And surprisingly, you're treated like royalty. You really are. I go to a foreign country and say, and they don't know me for Adam. And I'll meet people, but they know I'm dean of a school, and I'm treated as a very, very special person, despite the fact that I'm pretty ordinary. It's just the honor of the position that garners the respect. That was a ramble, wasn't it?
I loved it.
Other questions?
Yeah.
So what's your advice for young scientists?
Work hard, get good ideas, work with good people. What was success? What really helped me be successful is working with good people. In fact, that's probably one of the best pieces of advice you can give any scientist. It's very hard to work in isolation. Years ago, 30, 40 years ago, you could really do that. You know, you could have a lab, run it yourself, and be sort of, you know, the gentleman scientist or gentlewoman scientist. You can't do that today. It's too complex. It's too complicated. Too many different skill sets you need to bring. But as I mentioned before, you know, the smartest thing I ever did as a scientist was ask if I could work in Ron's lab. And you know, I learned so much there, and I learned so much about how to be successful. Probably that was as much of an education as learning the science components that were in his lab, but learning, you know, how to be a scientist, how to run a lab. And I still today, you know, we recruit new faculty, and you know, we always talk to them about, you know, what it takes to be successful, what our expectations are. Excuse me. And there's not one of them I haven't told us that I point at Ron and say, do what he does and you'll be successful. And it's because, you know, he sets such a great example, and he's such a, you know, wonderful collegial kind of person. But you know, my recommendation is find a good person to work with. It helps if they're funded and they're a little bit older than you are, so they have something going. But you know, I also had the good opportunities like with Yuzo Chino. You know, he and I were about the same stages in our career, and we just fed off each other's research, and we're still publishing papers together. And it's more fun that way. I don't know. So I've been very fortunate in having a very large group of collaborators throughout my career. And the number of single author publications I have, you can count on one hand, and they're usually not very good.
Others?
If I could get this down for the record, when I teach a seminar on refractive error development, students, completely unprompted by me, will say, you know, that Earl Smith paper, that was really clear. You know, the data made sense. They were clearly presented. The conclusions were reasonable. I understood it. Maybe it's also in contrast to anything that they're reading that has my name on it involved in a sort of way. So I wondered, what lessons are you keeping in mind when you do write a paper to try and get that clarity?
Well, I've told you this before. I was very lucky. My PhD advisor, he didn't help me a lot in terms of doing the research, but he helped me learn to write. He taught me to write, basically, and he was a very demanding writer himself, and so you know he would not accept anything that wasn't what he thought was really good, and so repetition over and over and over. But you know, I think the key thing is you've got to learn to read your own stuff. You've got to be a good proofreader, and you know, if you can't be an honest judge of your own work, I think you'll never be able to write clearly. And and he got me to that point where I can read what I've got on paper and realize, yeah, that's crap. You know, you got to do it. You got to do it a different way. But you know, it's certainly something you can learn, because my God, I went up through the Texas education system. You know, English is something different down our way. You know, so you know, it's not something that you know. I hate to say, it's not something I learned early in school. It's something I learned in graduate school. I learned how to write. So it's something that's doable. There's no doubt about it. If I can learn to write, anybody can learn to write. But it helps if you have someone that cracks the whip and is willing to tell you. It's not easy, and I have to admit, I have a hard time telling a student, you know, that's really bad. You know, you really need to rewrite it. I have a tendency to rewrite it myself, you know, instead of teaching. Now, Steve Kuhl he taught me to, you know, you really sit there and get it right. So that was a great skill that he gave me. But I think what it boils down to is learning how to read your own writing and make a judgment about, you know, is that clear? Is that saying what you want to say?
And how'd you come to develop those beautiful, distinctive figures to present data in. If I had to say, you know, I can see a slide and go, oh,
Oh, no, you'll see some
Earl
tonight
Smith.
that are really bad.
so-
No, I got a couple tonight that got too much junk on them. But well, I'm a visual guy. I was talking to Jenny today, and she was showing me numbers. I said, "Don't you have any figures of this stuff? I want to see a picture of the data." I've never been good at statistics, despite starting off as a math major. And I also like to see it. If I couldn't see it, I didn't feel good about it. And so I just, and part of it is when I was in graduate school, we actually had to hand draft our own figures, and you had to ink them. And you make a mistake, you start over. So you got good, and you try to make it as simple and clear as you could. And I hadn't thought about that, but I think that was a big part of growing up and figuring out how many bits of information can you have. And I hope that we make some clear figures. I try to do that, and part of the thing is the kind of work we're doing lends itself to showing individual examples, and so that I think it helps you talk through things as well.
Other questions? So I've had the opportunity in the last week to talk with a prominent Texas optometrist and also a former faculty member. And I told them that I was going to be interviewing you today, and they said, well, there's just not much bad we can say about Earl. He's just a quality guy, excellent person to work for, and just a high quality individual. So that's the word on the street.
You haven't talked to the right people.
I think I talked to some folks that would have told me otherwise had it been the case. So the real big question I think that's looming for everybody here is, Ohio State came to Dallas last week to play a football game. Were you rooting for Ohio State or Texas Christian?
We do not root for anybody from the old Southwest Conference.
Ah, okay. All right.
So we're on your side on that one.
Which was the right side.
There you go. There you go.
Very good. Earl, we appreciate you being
Thank
here.
you so much,
Thank you
and
so much.
thank you for establishing this
our
lectureship.
privilege, our
It's such a
privilege.
fun deal, and such an honor to be here.
Oh, well, we're glad to have you. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. We look forward to the lecture afterwards.
I hope so.
All right.